Thank you everyone for joining the Testing Bootcamp. I hope you are safe and well wherever you are and excited as I am to get started. I'm Eital, the head of community, and I'm pleased to see each and every one of you here with us. Thank you for all your cool comments. We love it, so keep it moving. And this month we've created 3 special sessions for you in the Testing Bootcamp, as you can see on our screen now. Each session has its unique features, so make sure to catch them all. The tickets to the next 2 sessions are waiting for you in my article at our TestProject blog with our Testing Bootcamp challenge, so don't miss it out as well. Today, we are starting with the first one, the first session. So what do we have planned for you in today? Overcome open source test automation challenges. Create mobile tests, Android, iOS, even iOS on Windows. We will use AI tools to stabilize our tests and prevent test flakiness. And together, we will also execute tests in parallel without third-party tools. Yes, that's happening in TestProject. Analyze test analysis and reporting dashboards. And make sure to listen closely because we will have a Kahoot quiz or kind of a test that we will test your knowledge and you better prepare. So before we start, a few housekeeping as always. By the end of the session, you will receive to your email a special certificate with the tag of this session, resources to learn more and prepare for the next one. And once the bootcamp is completed, you will also receive the full recording of each and every session in the entire bootcamp. Please feel free to ask questions in the dedicated Q&A section in the Zoom, and we will make sure to address as many of them as possible. So are you guys ready? I think I heard, yes, we are. So let me introduce you to our superhero guy that will take you step by step toward boosting your mobile journey, which is also our solution engineer team lead, Amit Lacher. And one more special and important guest, Barat Shroletz, one of our powerful co-founder and chief architects. All of them are here with us. So without further ado, Amit, take it away.
Thank you very much, Meital, for the lovely introduction. My name is Amit, as Meital said before, and I'll be doing the technical part of this first bootcamp session. So I want to begin with challenges with open source mobile automation, because 70% of all the mobile and generally test automation is dominated by the open source community. So because there's so much interest in open source, this is why it is so important, especially in mobile. And today we are going to talk about difficulties. We're going to see how we can overcome these difficulties utilizing TestProject tools. Let's first touch a bit about the challenges. So the first one would be technical skills. Setting up a complete mobile automation framework without the right programming skills is extremely difficult, which is something not everybody has access to. So the first challenge is, as we said, is the knowledge needed in order to create this. The second one is the hidden costs. So when I say hidden costs, what I'm referring to is building a reliable test automation framework. It can take and consume a lot of time. It can get very expensive because of the effort and resources teams have to put in for everything to succeed. And moving into the next one, we have maintenance. We have a lot of maintenance. When we're using open source, we need to always get the latest, always keep track. We need to always move forward with the versions, and it is a lot of maintenance overall. There is a big learning curve for the testing team when talking about open source. Not always there is enough resources to learn from, and many of the times the learning curve is pretty hard. Moving on into CI/CD, the complexity to set up or integrate an existing framework or create one and combining it into a CI/CD pipeline can be extremely challenging, especially when it comes to parallel execution and deployment. You need to set up a lot of things in advance in order for everything to work properly. There's a lot of DevOps involved, a lot of the developing of your tests and the framework. And last but not least is the reporting. There is a lack of reporting in the open source mobile automation. If you want a normal report, you will usually have to resort to third-party tools for that nice report in the end, for your execution to have that. So moving on to the next slide. Let's talk a bit how TestProject comes in and solves all of the problems we've mentioned before. So first of all, what is TestProject? So TestProject is an open source based free end-to-end test automation platform where you can create, execute, debug your tests, develop the test. You can record them, you can write them, you can do anything you want with TestProject. And it supports web, iOS native, Android native, mobile on web for both, and API testing as well. And it is extremely reachable, where we run on Linux, Windows, Mac OS, and even on Docker. And TestProject is supported by the biggest automation community around the world, with over 150,000 different teams and developers and testers which are utilizing TestProject. So let's talk a bit about the architecture and what makes TestProject so special against other tools and other solutions in the market. So a bit about the architecture. So on the right side, we have the TestProject agent, which is a local component installed on your machine, on your local machine. The TestProject agent contains everything you see on the right side. So it contains all of the OpenSDK components, all of the option for offline execution, which is the CLI. And below that, it contains, as you can see on the right side, all of the AI services. And these AI services fixes and gives solution to a lot of the problems we have talked about earlier. These three AI components are designed and working all the way to stabilize your test. We're going to talk about them more later. We're going to demonstrate how they work, and we're going to explain more of them. If we can just go a bit backwards. Yeah. So as you can see, TestProject uses an open source tool, as we have mentioned, the Selenium and Appium. It supports all of the browsers. You can see here all of the mobile devices, iOS, Android as well. And on the right side, we have the TestProject Cloud, where you can find all of your dashboards, your team collaboration aspects, all of your add-ons, and an automated CI and scheduler, and a lot more. So moving on to the next slide, we have the TestProject parallel execution from 3.0. So for everybody that are new to TestProject or are not familiar with, starting TestProject 3.0, we introduced a new option to parallel execute any test. It can be mobile, it can be web. Today we're going to focus on mobile specifically, but as you can see on the on the picture right here, you can see that essentially the TestProject agent is capable of starting up to 10 workers on the same time, which means you are able to execute up to 10 devices potentially using the agent, the single agent, in the same time. So those devices can be different devices, they can be different platforms, and it can also be in addition to browsers as well, if you choose to. So let's move on to the next slide. So let's talk a bit about other solutions for parallel execution. For example, Selenium Grid versus Docker versus TestProject. So if we take a look on the setup time, it is extremely long on Selenium Grid and Docker. In contrast to TestProject, which the installation of the agent only takes a few minutes. It is a simple installation, no configuration at all. It's much more of a plug and play solution than the other options in the market. The complexity of the TestProject agent is none. We don't have any complexity there. It's just a matter of going to the UI and changing the number of workers from 1 to 10. That's as simple as it gets regarding the parallel execution. And TestProject agent is only limited by the hardware which it runs on, which is not a problem, because you can have multiple agents associated into the same account, which means then you are not really limited by the hardware as well. Regarding skills, the skills level needed in order to set up an agent and set up parallel execution framework is very low. There's not a need in any special knowledge in development or in Java or anything like that. It is not required. You can create your test, you can record your test, and by few clicks, you will be able to execute them all parallelly. So if we go and talk about maintenance, the maintenance using TestProject is extremely low again. And the reason for that is the TestProject cloud. All of your reports, all of your tests resides on TestProject cloud. You don't need to manage anything. By default, all of your teammates will have access to all of the tests and projects you are working on in the cloud, and you will be able to execute them from anywhere. Talking about mobile, TestProject supports mobile fully, in contrast to some of the other solutions, web browsers, of course, and headless and UI as well. So this is a bit about TestProject versus other solutions. And now we will continue with the live demo. So for that, I will share my screen.
And for this wonderful presentation, Amit, I think that everyone is more than excited to see it in action.
Yeah, so the first thing we're going to do is open up the platform. For those of you who are new, all you need to do to join is to go to TestProject.io and download an agent, register, and then you will be able to download the agent we were talking about. You can use any of the above to continue. And after that, we are going to head over to app, so TestProject.io, and we are going to log in into the account we have created. And once we are logged in, we can start to work, but we just need one more thing before that, and that is to download the TestProject agent. So the way we download an agent is from the Agents tab. All we need to do is download the agent and register it to our account. I already have an agent downloaded and running, so all I need to do is give it a name. And we will be able to register it to our account. Once the agent is registered, we will be able to see it here. And because we're talking about parallel execution today, it is extremely important to say that if you want to manually change the configuration for the agent, you can do it from here. So the agent by default starts with one worker, which allows for one execution on one device at a time. But by simply going here and changing it to 2, I have enabled parallel execution. So the amount of configuration against other tools here is almost none. So if you haven't done it already, if you're already registered to TestProject and you don't know about this, or maybe you are new here, simply download an agent after you have registered and go here, and you can enable parallel execution by default by simply changing the active worker. So I'm gonna go, the maximum is 10, and when I try to change it to 10, our platform will automatically calculate the most optimized amount of workers you should use. For me, it is 4, so I'm going to set it as recommended. And what it means that with my hardware of the laptop, which I'm currently using, TestProject agent has calculated the amount of workers I should use it for. So currently I can run 4 different devices at the same time. Those devices can be either mobile devices, Android, or iOS, and it can also be a browser. So we can run 2 tests on browsers, we can run 2 tests on mobile. It doesn't have to be the same platform. No configuration is needed here. So with that being said, let's create a mobile test, and let's see how we can get the advantage of running it in parallel and how much time it actually can save for us. So without further explanations, let's go ahead and create our first test. So let's create a test. Let's choose mobile. And to enable mobile recording, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in my mobile device. And then I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to enable USB debugging, which is needed for Android recording. However, if you are recording on emulator, for example, which is what I'm going to show you now, you don't have to do that because emulators by default can be recorded on. So the first thing we're going to do is to open Android Studio. And I'm going to start up a device. I'm going to fire up a device, and we should be able to see the device in any moment. Let's fire up the device. And while it is loading, let's see what settings we need to enable in order to record on physical devices. Because as we said before, emulators do not need these settings. So the devices I'm going to work with today is the Google Pixel 3, and the emulator I have is another one, which is a previous version. So the settings you will need to change here can be found in developer settings. Right here.
It's important to mention, though, that these settings might be in a bit different place.
That's right.
Depends on the device manufacturer and the version of the Android that is installed currently on the device. But this is absolutely necessary step to make sure that your device is getting recognized on the TestProject platform.
Right. So as Marat mentioned, this setting might be very from device to device, depends on the manufacturer. So for example, on this device, the setting would be named USB debugging. As we said, it might be a bit different from device to device. But generally, all of the settings should be under developer settings or developer options, which one you have. And to test on physical devices, the setting is needed. So let me start my emulator here, and then let's proceed. One moment, let's start the emulator.
So just to emphasize that while Amit is launching the emulator there, emulators are basically something that can be used on any platform. Just seeing a few questions here. You can use Android emulators on Windows, and Linux, and on macOS. But when it comes to iOS simulators, many people ask why we do not allow using iOS simulators on Mac machines. It's basically because it's a legal restriction from Apple. Apple do not allow you to run Xcode because simulators are part of Xcode. So basically, they do not allow running Xcode on any operating system other than macOS. And therefore, you need a Mac machine, Mac hardware, and Mac operating system to launch Xcode and launch iOS simulators there. And then you will be able testing iOS applications in simulators without having an Apple developer account. Having said that, usually, I believe so, that when you have an application in the form of an IPA file, for example, it definitely comes from a developer that has already deployed this application onto a physical device. So in theory, your development team can grant you with an access to an existing Apple developer account. You don't need to set up one of your own and pay the $99 fee on a yearly basis. They can invite you into an existing account, and by this allow you to deploy this application onto a physical device.
Sorry, right. So, so yeah, as Marat mentioned before, when it comes to iOS, it's a bit more complicated, but there is other solutions for that as well. Even on TestProject, we can still test mobile devices, which are iOS and also emulators. We can do that on device farms, and we can also do that in physical device form on Windows as well. So although we are limited to emulators, there are other solutions where we can still test iOS devices using TestProject. So let's move on to recording the application. I have installed on this device the application Bloomberg, and I'm going to create a test for it. So let's choose Android, let's choose the application, let's create it. And now let's choose from the emulator the application which is installed. As you can see here, now we have created an application. Let's proceed with recording of this. And now we're going to prompt to check to choose a device. I'm going to again choose the emulator. Although I have some physical devices which are connected, as you can see here, we're going to use them in just a moment. Now, as you can see, emulators sometimes tend to be a bit slower than physical devices. So some of the steps we need to adjust accordingly. I will show you how to do it using TestProject.
Right, and it's actually something that is very common, like because the emulation happens in different types of architecture. Please make sure that when you create this emulator, you're using an API that allows you to use an x86 image. Otherwise, if you're using an ARM image for your emulator, it will be extremely slow. So you can refer to the documentation we have on emulators on our documents website. This is something that will definitely help you to make the emulator usable. Otherwise, it's just too slow.
Right. So after some configuration and choosing the correct version, the correct Android version and the correct device, we can simply drag and drop any APK onto this emulator window right here. And after I will drag and drop the APK here, it will automatically be installed for me. And I will be able to then test it using TestProject. And now that we have everything loaded up, let's start recording our first test. As you can see, emulators are a bit slower than real devices, which is to be expected. We don't mind that. But because we have seen the emulator limitations and that it takes so much time to reset the app, to actually launch the app on the emulator, I'm going to go here to advanced options, and by default, I'm going to allow this application more time to load. And it is extremely easy with TestProject. All I will do here is change the execution speed, and I will give it some time to load. And you can do that from here. And after it has been launched, I'm going to choose after, and I'm going to give it a few seconds to load. So as you can see, now we have this pause button here, which will automatically wait for the application to be launched. And now let's add some steps. So let's first verify that we can see this get unlimited access pop-up. And the way I'm going to do that is by simply double shifting on this element and choosing validations and say that it contains the text. And we're going to see that immediately we get the positive reply, which we are looking on this element and we are asking, does it contain this text? So let's move on with exiting the pop-up because we have already verified the paragraph. So we're going to exit it. Let's continue with a quick search. And all the steps that I'm performing, of course, will be recorded into the steps menu here. We can search for anything that we want to. So let's type here and let's search.
So one of the questions basically that is sometimes popping up here is how do you record mobile scenarios on TestProject? Are you interacting with the actual physical device, or are you doing this through this mirror projection image? And yes, in order to interact with different elements, just as Amit is currently showing you, you have to interact with this projection because this is the way to recognize different element types, see their attributes, invoke different types of actions, which are complex actions, for example, such as getting the text. This is something that you cannot achieve by just typing and clicking on the elements of the actual device. So yeah, this inspector or a spy, if you like to call it that way, this is the way to record mobile scenarios on TestProject.
And while Marat was explaining how can we interact with the mobile device, I've removed a few steps because during the time limitation, the search is taking a bit too long. So I'm going to go with a different scenario. So let's click on the menu button. And now in the menu button, let's do something interesting. So let's go with verifying the version we are using this application on. So first of all, let's head over to settings. And now that we are in settings, let's add a dynamic part, a dynamic aspect to this test. So the first thing I'm going to do is to pause my test, and I'm going to manually head all the way down so I can find the version of this application. And as you can see, the scroll down I'm doing manually, are being performed and sent to the device. And I can now find this version. So the first thing I want to do is to scroll down all the way until I find this element. So I'm going to use double shift to freeze this page. And I'm going to add an action to swipe to this element. And I'm going to swipe to this element, which is up or down. I'm going to install this add-on, which will automatically perform this for me. It's a coded action that has already solved this issue. And I'm going to remove some of the auto-generated locators, as sometimes they can point to different elements in the page, depends on the page. It usually happens on mobile applications. So I'm going to leave the locator which is utilizing text, because this is the only bundle SH in the page. So I'm going to leave it as is. And the direction would be down. So let's save this step. And now let's quickly run our test. I'm going to allow this pop-up more time as well, because I've seen it takes a few seconds to pop up. So I'm going to go to advanced options, and I'm going to up the adaptive weight, which is an automatic, it's an AI component in TestProject that automatically waits for an element to load in the page. So I'm going to set it to very patient, and I'm going to save it. So let's run our test quickly and see what is going on. So as Marat mentioned, it's very important to get the correct version of emulator and the correct architecture type when you are downloading it, because if you get the wrong one, it can be very slow, and that can hurt the automation. It can cause a lot of flakiness and a lot of other issues when steps are taking too long.
Yeah, and as you have mentioned, I think that the most challenging part of automating mobile application, especially when it comes to internet connectivity speed and the device architecture and the responsiveness of the device. In this particular example, we are looking at the Bloomberg application. There is nothing wrong about it. It just loads the data dynamically. As you can see, there's a spinning loading animation there. But it makes your automation fragile, just because it takes an unexpected amount of time. Sometimes it takes less, sometimes it takes more time to get loaded. So the way to deal with these things is to either wait for quite a while, and then your tests become more time consuming, or use the TestProject AI that allows you to make sure that the elements is there and it is available and is ready for this automation step. So we're showing Bloomberg on purpose here, not just to show you the slowness of the emulator or the application itself, but to explain how you can deal with these challenges using TestProject tools. And unfortunately, sometimes it of course takes time. It's not about internet connectivity. It's probably more because of we're using Zoom and the emulator here, but this definitely represents the actual experience you'll have with such applications.
Yeah, and while Murat is going over challenges like this in mobile automation, I'm actually going to stop this execution, and I'm gonna run it in the same time as well as on a real device. So first of all, as you can see, while Marat has been talking about the challenges, I've added a bit more adaptive weight to these steps, and now you can see that they are passing quite easily. And what we can do here is actually change the overall test adaptive weight, which I'm going to do now, and set it to patient or very patient. And this will allow the test to run to adaptively wait for the correct element. So if things take more time or less time, we'll be able to dynamically wait for that. So let's see some parallel execution here. So I will create a job, an Android job. And I'm going to choose 3 devices. And the reason I'm going to go with 3 devices is because I want to emphasize on how much time we can save with parallel execution, and as well as to show the difference between an emulator and a real device in execution time. So it will save us a lot of time like this. And also, it is because I have 4 workers, I'm able to execute 3 devices at the same time. So let's go with parallel mode. And you can see here that by simply changing the settings, I've now configured my automation to run on 3 different devices, one of which is an emulator. So let's create this job. And let's drag our test here. And let's execute this test on all of our devices. So this is our first device. And it's also possible to see the device from the test project side. So if we're going to go here, we will be able to see the second device as well, the Google Pixel or the Samsung. We can do both. And our execution is now initializing. It will soon be launched on all of the devices you see here. So we can see we have 3 targets for this execution. Those 3 targets are the Samsung 10, the Samsung S10, the emulator we have started, and the Google Pixel 3. And if we take a look on this as well, we can see that both executions are running in the same time, actually. So we can take a look. We can also see it here in the monitor. But if we can take a look on the execution themselves right here. And this is a good example to show that an emulator is running much slower than a physical device, but still TestProject is capable of executing the same test on a real device and on an emulator as well, successfully, of course.
So yeah, while it's running, it definitely takes less time to cover the actual test, since the test is not that long. Then perhaps you won't be able to see an actual benefit, but you can see that indeed it runs simultaneously. So if in the past we did not allow executing tests simultaneously on a single device, and we were basically encouraging people to use cloud providers such as House Labs or the browser stack for doing these things, and then say targeting different agents so they can do it in parallel. Today, you can basically do it on a single agent, so that the execution happens in parallel on all the devices. And of course, it makes sense when your job contains multiple tests. And let's say take, for example, I don't know, half an hour, then executing the very same test on 3 different devices, covering these devices and testing for responsiveness or the behavior of the application on these 3 different devices takes the same half an hour plus a bit of an overhead for initializing these mobile sessions. So yeah, you can basically set up to, let's say, 10 workers, which means 10 concurrent sessions on a single agent, and by this reduce the execution time by 10, multiply of 10.
Right. So like Marat is saying exactly. So if we take a look on this example here, the emulator execution took us 2 minutes, and the Samsung and the Google Pixel took us 2 minutes together as well. So in serial, opposed to parallel, we actually saved 50% of the time. with 3 devices running at the same time. So it is extremely great numbers. And of course, it also depends on the use case, because I've used an emulator, which is not very efficient in the runtime. I've only saved 50%, which means I can save a lot more. So this has been quite amazing. The amount of configurations I had to do in order to allow parallel execution is minimal. I didn't have to do anything special besides connecting few devices to my machine and starting an emulator. So keeping that in mind, extremely great results for 10 minutes to create an automation in 10 minutes and parallel execute that on 3 different mobile devices.
Right, and it basically refers to the very first part of your presentation, where you basically mentioned that with all the other options, even if they are so advanced and so feature-rich, it always is a learning curve for getting started. On TestProject, as you could see, we have completed this in a jiffy. Like we installed an agent, we have connected it to the account, we have created automation, we have executed the automation, we've executed the automation in parallel, saving precious time when you want to scale your tests. And you don't even need to create any kind of CI/CD pipelines for this. You can basically use TestProject to schedule this job now and get it executed on a scheduled manner, all in one single solution that does not require an additional infrastructure, does not require any coding skills, which of course exist. And we do allow using our SDKs to code things when you want to migrate your existing test or maybe create some advanced scenarios. It is super simple, and this is the greatness of TestProject that we provide here by allowing you to get started really quickly. And even then, if you have these recorded tests already created, you can export this test into code and continue coding. So for questions like, why are we concentrating on the recording capabilities? I keep saying that we have the SDK, it's just that to get started, sometimes it makes sense just to interact with the application and inspect the elements and so on, etc. It makes sense to use the recorder and then continue through code.
Yeah, and just as when Marat explained, even though some solutions may have a bit more features or a bit more options, when it comes to TestProject, just creating a script, an automation script in a matter of seconds by recording these steps and then applying this automation on multiple devices, there's no competition there. The simplicity of that, which it's absolutely amazing. So this is the live demonstration of mobile device and parallel execution, and keep everything in mind. As we have already explained, you're not gonna Meital is gonna explain more on the upcoming quiz, which we'll have. And if you listen carefully to the explanations of me and Murat, you should be able to answer all of the questions. Regardless of that, Meital, I think you can take it from here.
Thank you so much, Amit. And thank you, Marat, as well, for this valuable info and lovely presentation. Session 1 has completed, I can say it. And I think now will be a great time to put your knowledge to the test, all the info about the big challenge and also the tickets for the next session. But let's go over now to some questions we have pending in the Q&A section. Amit and Marat, we have a few more minutes, so feel free to address them.
So we have a question regarding scroll to element. So you can scroll to element. I will share my screen for a moment.
I mean, I don't think that we should be answering this one, actually. Yeah, sorry, okay. Rajat, but I think that Rajat already asked it twice. Like, we don't have an action to scroll to a specific element for sure, but he's asking about scrolling inside of an element. I think it would be better if we will take this offline, because it's scrolling inside of an element for elements such as tables and so on. We do have solutions for this. It's just more customized add-ons, and we can, of course, provide more accurate explanation guidance. If you just contact us through our support channels like the forum or the intercom, we'll find a solution for this one as well. Okay, so we have another question here from Gaurav Gupta. He's asking how can debug if the test case fails. So the way it works with TestProject is that when you execute a scenario, you have a list of steps that can either pass or fail. Each step performs an atomic action mostly, such as, for example, let's say clicking an element. And when it fails, it infers an error, which you can see in the recorder. And you can also see in the test execution report later on in the reporting dashboard. So this is your way to debug. You can basically see things like, for example, a screenshot that is taken when it fails to find the element, and even an attachment of the document object model, which is the hierarchy of the elements that is being inspected in order to find this element. And when it fails to find an element, for example, it asserts a failure, gives you all this information as a screenshot and this attachment of DOM. So that you can check what's going on. If you are using the recorder, then it just stops at a particular step that has failed, and you can inspect the actual application UI state to understand what's going on and why it fails, and using the error details, fix it and continue further with your scenario creation. Okay, so there's a question here about adding additional languages such as the Go in the future for the SDK. I don't think we have any plans adding the Go language. I'm not even sure if Go language is supported by Selenium or Appium, but we do have SDKs in Python, Java, JavaScript, and C#, which I think is at this point plenty of options to create coded versions of automation using TestProject.
We have a question from Elvarsan, I think, asking about if we can know the pass or fail percentage. And we can. We actually have it in the from earlier in this session, as I've shown in the report. You can see there. We have the full coverage of pass or fail in the report. You can find it there. If you have missed it, you can go back to the recording and check it out.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, dear friend, for participating in the first testing bootcamp session. It was so much fun having you with us, playing and learning together. And of course, thank you so much, Marat and Amit, for answering so many questions and for delivering all this valuable info. You definitely helped us boost our mobile test automation. So don't forget to catch up the 2 next session that will be next week and the week after. And of course, that's it for this session, guys. So we will see you next week. Session number 2, the first testing bootcamp, the second testing bootcamp, and it will be amazing. So I can't wait to see you guys there. And thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Testing Bootcamp. I hope you are safe and well wherever you are. I'm super excited to get things started. I'm Mital, the head of community, and I have to admit, I missed you guys from the last week for the first bootcamp session. So this is so much fun seeing you again today for the second session. And don't forget to meet me here next week for the final and third session about the add-ons. So you can find all the links in our chat right now as we speak. Plus, participate in our TestProject Testing Bootcamp Challenge. All you need to do, super simple. The first thing, actively log into your TestProject account or sign up if you haven't already at TestProject.io. Register to the final session, the third one. And guys, the most important step, post on your social media a creative video, meme, article, post, or infographic from one part you like the most about the bootcamp. Pick one session or a couple that you really like and share the fun with your friend. Super easy, right? And that's it. You might win all of these amazing prizes you see here on the screen for a full camp experience, a telescope, a tent, and even a GoPro. So you don't want to miss it, especially when the challenge is really easy, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing you in your post. And don't forget to tag us. You can even tag me if you want. It will be super cool. Still not sure what I'm talking about? Okay, so check out my article in the TestProject blog to learn more, and all the details again and the links are in the chat. So are you ready for today's session? Let's go. Today we're going to talk about how we can easily develop web and mobile tests using our open source SDK. We'll see how it is different from other, how to receive automatic free report, and walk through a live demo. And make sure to listen closely because we will have a Kahoot quiz by the end, which will put your knowledge to the test. And of course, we will answer all of your burning questions. And as usual, before we start, a few housekeeping. By the end of this session, you will receive to your email a special certificate with the tag of this session, resources to learn more and prepare for the next one. And once the bootcamp is over, you will also receive the full recording of the entire testing bootcamp by the 25th. So please feel free to ask questions in the dedicated Q&A section in the Zoom, and we will make sure to address as many of them as possible. So, are you ready? Let me introduce the mentors of this bootcamp. The one and only Marat Strelets. Marat?
Yes, hi everyone.
One of our co-founder and chief architects who will lead the way of this magnificent session, and joining him, Amit Lacher. Can you hear us?
Hello, everyone.
Our head of solution engineer team. You really got the best of the best here, so listen carefully, take some notes, and follow their lead. And without further ado, Marat, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Meital. Unfortunately, I don't have this fancy bootcamp background that you've got, so forgive me about that. Thank you, everyone.
It's also amazing, by the way.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Hope so. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Today, we're going to discuss technical aspects of the OpenSDK and how to use it. And basically, usually, perhaps you're all familiar with how TestProject simplifies things in setting up the environment and creating recorded tests. But in this particular session, we're going to concentrate on people who are basically developing their tests and how the OpenSDK helps you to do such things. The OpenSDK is completely free. It's currently available in 4 major programming languages, the Java, of course, C#. It is a basically C#.NET Core, so you can run these tests on any operating system, not only in Windows. It is also available for Python, and our last addition is the JavaScript SDK, so that you can leverage frameworks such as Chime, Mocha, and other things. The OpenSDK basically provides a single interface for creating web and mobile applications as well. So it's not only about Selenium tests, but it's also about Appium tests, so you can test your Android and iOS applications as well. Since TestProject supports testing iOS on physical devices when you're using Windows operating system, so you can use the same SDK in order to work with the TestProject stack and test your iOS applications on Windows using the SDK as well. And of course, the major advantage of using the OpenSDK is that when you are creating your tests, any command that is being sent to the servers is being actually logged as a separate step in the reports. You can get either local reports in the form of HTML files, or you can get remote reports in the TestProject dashboard. We will see it all in action really soon when I will be demonstrating all of it. And as we already said, it's all for free. It's all given to you as part of the TestProject stack. Okay, so many people ask us, like, what is our motivation in providing all this for free and maintaining the community? As you're all probably familiar, we are part of Tricentis. Tricentis are willing to give back to the community. And indeed, we are here to help developers making things simpler, making things easier, such as creating the environment infrastructure, distributing their tests. We'll be seeing today in the demonstration how to package your test and then get them executed from the test project environment and not within your IDE. So yeah, we provide it all for free with love to the community. Yeah, so about what is the difference basically between the test project and the standard approach of using the Selenium or Appium. We are indeed using Selenium and Appium after all, so we are basically based on them, and without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. But we extend this functionality and we provide additional layer of, I would say, convenience towards creating web and mobile tests, reducing the complexity, as you already mentioned a couple of times, for creating the infrastructure, simplifying procedures that are restricted because of different legal aspects, such as, for example, iOS and the need for Xcode and macOS machines. We provide additional incentive for using the SDK, such as the dashboards and the analysis tools that you will have as part of the test project platform. And as we already mentioned before, it's all available in 4, I would say, most common programming languages. So if you are a fan of C# or Python or would be JavaScript, it's all good. We have SDKs for all of them. We'll be seeing some of it during the demonstration in a moment. Okay, so a little bit about architecture before we head to the actual demonstration part. So you can use any IDE you would like to. You can use Eclipse for JavaScript, IntelliJ, you can use Visual Studio Code, you can even use Notepad if it makes you feel better about it. We, of course, suggest using the tools provided that have IntelliSense and other features, but it's all up to you how to do it. Eventually, there are some minimum version requirements, such as, for example, for Java, we require Java 11, and for Python, we require Python 3 and not Python 2, for example. Sometimes people are bumping into these obstacles right at the beginning, so please read carefully the documentation. And the way it basically works is that when you have your IDE open and running, you create a project in any of these languages. And the OpenSDK basically communicates not directly with the Selenium or the Appium servers, but it communicates with the test project agent, the one that basically serves as the execution platform and the engine for the test execution. In its turn, it takes care of all the governance and maintenance of the drivers and submitting all the relevant information to the relevant places. So it still serves as a one-stop shop for you. You don't have to install or configure anything else besides the agent itself. And then we have either the device under test or the application under test. So the same way the test project supports the major browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Internet Explorer, and Safari, we also allow to create sessions with the different drivers against these targets. And of course, you can also create mobile tests on Android and iOS by supplying the specific desired capabilities, or in this particular case, the options that are required to initialize the development session. And then the agent will take care of the rest, will initialize all the infrastructure required to set up things. Again, you don't need to take care of anything related to ADB or Xcode or anything like this. And then basically what happens is that the reports, which are, again, they're optional. You can either have local reports in the form of an HTML files when you are using the SDK, or you can have these reports get uploaded to the test project dashboards and seeing them there. So it can review it on show to management or compare them later for automatic executions, especially when you package your tests and you upload them to the platform. You can execute them several times or based on some specific schedule, or trigger them from the API. So it's all up to you. And then you can have all the reports available in the dashboard, so you can review them later, let's say in your morning when you come after the automation is completed. Okay, so this is just a glance of how the dashboard looks like. There are different tests and some trends that are being displayed here. Some information about basically what are the browsers, or for example, what is the machine that has been used to execute this. So in this particular case, there's plenty of information here. Sometimes it's a data-driven test, sometimes it's something that includes screenshots and DOM snapshots in case of failure, so you can debug and review the problems later on, and so on and etc. So yeah, this is part of the TestProject stack, and you can get this part again for free using the OpenSDK. All right, so now once we are done with this introduction part, let's head to the actual demonstration section. Amit, are you still with me?
Yes, definitely.
Great. So yeah,
I was just answering some questions in the Q&A section.
Great. If there's anything interesting there you would like to answer live, just let me know. I will stop and we will address it accordingly. So yeah, as I mentioned before, it all starts with how you basically get the OpenSDK to start developing your tests. Once you have an account with TestProject and you log into the online application website, you can basically navigate to the integration section. And here you can see that at this point, we present that we have Java, C# and Python. But again, as I said earlier, we do have the JavaScript SDK also available. We will add the missing button to our website soon. And then once you are okay with your selection, let's say it was Python or something, then you get the instructions on how to install it. So again, I'm not sure who is familiar with any specific of the languages, but usually Python dependencies are being installed using pip, and C# is usually a NuGet package, and Java is something that you can get from Maven or Gradle. So there are different instructions on how you prefer to package your tests. And for JavaScript, it's the NPM. So once you have it installed, and I will show you in a moment how it looks like, you will also require something that we call a developer token. The developer token is basically the same for all the languages. It's not language bounded. It's just something that is associated with your account. And you will need it in order to initialize the development session with your agent. So you will have to install the SDK, you have to get the development token, and then you're good. You can get started. If you require any further information on the specifics of each of these SDKs, here at the bottom, we usually provide the GitHub repository link. And in this particular session, I'll be showing you the Java SDK because it's just easier to demonstrate things with it. And this is basically the repository that contains the Java SDK. As I mentioned before, it also has the instructions on how to include this dependency, or basically how to install the SDK into your project. Okay, so this is for Gradle and this is for Maven. And again, for Maven, it's in POM XML, and for Gradle, it's build Gradle. Please note that, as I mentioned before, you must be using Java 11. Usually, the very first impression that you have is that things do not work. It starts complaining about different class versions, so on and etc. Because the SDK requires JDK 11 and further, and newer, sorry. Make sure it's not 8, which by default sometimes is installed on different operating systems. It's an important part of the whole operation here. Before we'll get started with actually seeing how to implement a test using the OpenSDK, I would like to get started with a simple test that is created using a pure Selenium. Just to compare on how easy it is to migrate things and how easy it is to basically change all your existing tests, if you have any, or if you're familiar with the Selenium and Appium driver syntax, how you can easily switch on to TestProject, because the syntax is absolutely the same. You don't have to learn anything new in order to use the OpenSDK. You can use existing tests, as I mentioned, and just copy paste them or migrate them into the TestProject platform without actually changing the tests themselves. So As you can see here, I've got a Gradle project, okay, very simple project, and we have dependency of the JUnit 5 that I'm using here for my tests, okay? And we also have the Selenium client tools that I need in order to communicate with the Selenium server, okay? So this is the client tools. It's not yet Selenium 4, but soon will be there as well. It's currently in beta 4, so as soon as it becomes a release candidate, perhaps this project will switch to Selenium 4. Now, heading back to the test here, what happens basically is that since this is a JUnit test, I added some annotations here just to make sure that things are clear here on what exactly is happening. So we got our class. It's more like a suite of tests. Okay, so I call it the example tests. And we have several functions here that happen in turn. So this is the actual test that will be performing some automation steps. But before this test is executed, there is a function here annotated with the before all annotation that will happen before and create a driver for me. It will initialize with the Selenium server and will create a Chrome driver in my particular case. When the test execution will be completed, it will quit the driver and close the browser. Okay, so to make it work, what I need to do, I need to download the Selenium server. You are probably all familiar with this. And once I download it, I need to start it using Java, because Selenium standalone server is also a Java-based application after all. And when I do so, I have a Selenium server up and running on a particular port. I also have the Chrome driver right next to it, okay, right here, the Chrome driver next to the Selenium server, which is the version of the browser that I'm currently using. So I'm using Chrome 92. I have downloaded Chrome 92 here as well. I did this all setup manually, something that again with TestProject you don't need to, but I'm just mentioning this so you know what's the procedure in general. And when I have all this infrastructure up and running, I can execute this simple test here by debugging it. What you can see here that is happening, oh, it was too quick. I'll just add more sleep here. 5 seconds, just to make sure that it is enough for us to see what went right and wrong there. Okay, so we have the browser opening up. We have some login page, and now we have this logout button displayed. And this basically means that the test is successful. And you can see here on the left, inside your IDE, that the examples test has been executed. The example login has been executed. Some assertions here that happened. You don't see any reports, unfortunately, because there were no exceptions. If there would be any exceptions, then these assertions would be unsuccessful. Okay, and this is the way it works with pure Selenium. Now, going forward and switching to the TestProject OpenSDK, it will look almost seamless. Let me switch to a different window here. Okay, and before we look at the differences, I want to have a look again at the project structure. So this is a Gradle project as well. Okay, and as I mentioned before, the first thing you have to do, you have to install the SDK. So to do it with Gradle, you just add this implementation dependency with the relevant version of the SDK. At this point, it's 1.2.3, which is a funny number, right? But yeah, this is the latest version that is currently released to GitHub and the Maven Central. And then we have the JUnit libraries so that we can create JUnit tests. And we'll discuss this part in a moment, what this all means. But in general, this is all that is required in order to get started. But something else that needed, as you remember, if I head back to this section here, I need this token. So I can just click on this copy, okay? And the token is being copied to my clipboard, okay? And then I have a special configuration here for the test, and I need to either add this token as an environment variable, or I can just specify it here. So if I have a token, which is just token, okay, this is the way I would do it by hard coding this token into the test. But again, I prefer using an environment variable. So I'm creating a JUnit configuration for running, IntelliJ configuration for running a JUnit test. And as part of this configuration, inside of it, I'm not going to show it because there's my token inside, but this is basically contains my development token. So just for demonstration purposes, again, I have my agent up and running here, okay? And if I will try to execute this test with the wrong token, okay, which is this one basically, it will complain to say that development token is invalid, okay? But if I remove it from here and it will use the environment variable, we'll see in a moment how this test is running. So if you compare again the structure of the test itself, it's almost the same. We still have the display name annotation here to give a name to our suit somehow. It's just a pretty name, otherwise it would use the class name. And then we have the before all, the after all, and the test annotated method, okay? The flow is again the same. It still uses driver to navigate, to find elements, to send keys, to click, and so on, etc. The only difference here is that we have something else that wasn't there at the original Selenium test. We have the driver report. So if you remember in the original version, we had the assume true, okay, and did nothing basically when it was successful. But in our case, we can replace this with something else, okay, and we can have an additional information inside of our report. So in this particular case, it will just log login information has been provided, okay, in case this is true, and it is true always, so it will always be logged, okay, and it can also be based on Boolean or any other variations of assertions, and in this particular case, it will infer that the login was successful only in case when the log out button is being displayed, okay, and this is what we will see eventually in the report. So,
but if we can, sorry, I stop you. Sorry, to interrupt you. If we can
yeah,
maybe
sure.
increase the font size a bit.
Oh yeah.
Some of our audience is having some trouble seeing the
I will
exact
definitely
line.
do it.
If I can zoom in a bit.
Right. We have zoom here. I'm not sure. Just give me a moment here. Interesting. I think we can just enter a presentation mode or something. Okay, and this will be bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, is it better now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, I'm not sure if I can leave it like this, like for the rest of the presentation, but we'll try. I'm not even sure how to exit the presentation mode now. Anyway, so yeah, as been saying, the actual driver commands are almost identical, besides some nice features and additions that TestProject OpenSDK provides. The way that the driver is created, as you can see, is that we are not using the remote web driver as we have done with the previous pure Selenium example. We are creating a specific driver, okay, with specific capabilities. And we are providing additional information because eventually, if this test is going to be uploaded into TestProject, and again, I'm not sure if you are all familiar with TestProject or not, but TestProject is based on projects, tests, and jobs, okay? So when I create a test, and we'll see how it's happening in a moment, I'll basically see my test, and it will belong to this particular project that I've named right now as 2021 August Webinar 2. You can just try to increase the font a little bit here so you can see a little better. And yeah, and if I switch back to this other window here, okay, here we go. And this will eventually create a report in the project name that I have shown you before under the name of example login. So this will be basically a report of a job, which will be named example login, okay? And the same way the test is named. So just, let's clear this here. It'll be easier for us to understand. This is a job and this is the test. Okay, now let me quit this presentation mode for a moment. It's presentation mode, and I want to run this scenario. So I'll just debug the test. And again, as I mentioned before, I'm running this test example with some additional environment variable information. Okay, and as you can see, a Chrome window is popping up. Okay, and navigation happens to quick, but again, you know what exactly is going on there. And then we can see the same report here in the IntelliJ of things that happen inside of IntelliJ. And basically, we don't see any more information, but we have a warning here, basically saying that we have no logger. We have no way to understand of what's going on. And the reason for not showing this information, and I'm again showing this on purpose because usually we'll face the same situation. I want to address this issue right here and right now, is that you have to configure a logger, and everyone uses something else, particularly in Java. It can be either log for Java, or it can be logback and other implementations. So let me head to this Java page here, and here at the very bottom, we have something about logging. So let me find it really quickly. Okay, so here's the explanation why basically it shows this warning. And to work around this thing here, I have to add something into my Gradle file here. This will basically add a simple logger for the SLF4J facade that is basically used by the SDK. Once I refresh the configuration and I run this test again, we'll no longer see this warning, and instead we'll see some console logs about what's going on. So now it's much easier to understand what happened there. And you can see that it has initialized a new session with some particular ID, and then it created a report for us as I promised, okay, an HTML report. We'll see it in a moment. Then some stuff happened, and then eventually we can see again, basically information that the session has been closed and the test was successful. Now let's see what we can see in this report, okay? This is the HTML local report that has been prepared on your file system. It's not being uploaded anywhere else unless you explicitly request doing this, okay? And you can review this report locally. You don't have to basically upload your, let's say, secure data or anything like this into the TestProject dashboards if you do not want to, right? It is there by default. You can turn it off by specifying different configurations for, if I can just move it a bit here. So find where it exactly says about, okay, so this section, the cloud and local report, you can basically specify the report type. So if you do not want the report to be uploaded into the TestProject dashboards when you're creating the driver, you can just use this enum and specify that you're looking for local reports only, so that no information will eventually reach to TestProject. Sometimes it's a concern for companies that do not want to expose their data, and this is the way to go. Now, let's just have another glance at the report itself. So what we can see here is that this was an example job, okay? And this was the project that this job has been executed in. We have a single test here called the example login test, and it was successful. And the interesting part here is basically that once it was executed on Chrome 92, we can also see all the commands and all the steps that have been executed. So you can see basically that it navigated to the page and found an element, it typed some data into some particular element, and so on and etc. And as you can see, the passwords and the sensitive data is masked out so that it will not be displayed in the report, neither in the local report, and of course not in the remote dashboards. But again, this is not everything. This is just the local report that has been created. And if we head to the TestProject website here into the report section now, we can basically see in a moment that we have the same report appearing here. Okay, so we executed twice, and this is the second execution here. Okay, we can see the same information we've seen in the local report, but now it appears in the dashboard. And again, all the information, all the sensitive information is masked out. You can't see it. Okay, sometimes you will have screenshots here. It's all part of the OpenSDK capabilities. Sometimes you can, of course, have more than one test here. It's all available in the dashboard, so you can share these reports with your colleagues or the management if you like to, and you can compare the executions even when you execute the coded tests created with OpenSDK, not only the recorded tests. Now, once we have seen how these things work with coded tests when running them from within your IDE, the next thing to do is basically to package this test and to upload it to TestProject so that you can execute them remotely and not only from within the IDE. Of course, this is one of the options. Sometimes it makes sense doing so when you have continuous integration in place. So you just check out your tests and you run them against an agent that is automating your application or your website. But sometimes it makes sense to code part of your automation or all of your automation and then to distribute these tests using the TestProject platform and not from within your own CI, especially if you don't need one and you can just use what TestProject has to offer. So yes, Anit, you wanted to say something?
Sorry. I just saw we had a question about whether or not we can save the report.
Oh yeah, the reports are basically an HTML file that is by default created in the agent folder under the reports folder. So here we have the 2 executions we had so far, right? But sometimes, again, you want to specify a custom location for these reports, right? So we can do it by specifying, by using the builder, okay? At this point, I use just a constructor, right? But we have a driver builder, and the driver builder has this with the report name, right? I can give a different name to this file, usually just the date and the timestamp, okay? And you can also specify the path where you want these HTML files to be stored. So yeah, this is your way of controlling this mechanism. And you can then, again, either package these files, ship them anywhere else, send them over to your peers and so on, etc.
And you also mentioned the way to add an image, a screenshot.
Oh yeah. So here in this driver report step here, what we can do basically is that it has lots of overloads. Okay. And one of the overloads, like for example, if I'm not mistaken, this one, okay, then it allows you to create a screenshot. So if you just pass true here, for example, you will see a screenshot at the step. So let's say that here we want to give some proof that the login was indeed successful, okay, and that the logout button is currently displayed. So we'll explicitly ask a screenshot to be added, and we'll see it in a report in a moment. Usually, a screenshot is added automatically when a step fails, but when it passes and it's successful, you have to explicitly specify this Boolean parameter here. Yeah, so again, heading back to the previous subject I wanted to discuss is how to package your tests and get them executed from within the TestProject platform, right? So to do this, you basically have to create a jar file, which will have all your tests inside, and it's not straightforward because usually tests are not something that should be packaged into your jar files, okay? Tests are usually omitted from your applications. But in this particular case, we do want them to appear. So there's some specific configuration that I have right here in my build Gradle file. And you can read about the same information on the GitHub page. It basically explains you how to do these things. But once you have it in the jar task and you invoke the jar task here from the Gradle panel, then a jar file is being created for you under the build folder, okay? Right here, okay? And this is the way to package these tests into a jar file and then upload them to TestProject. So heading back to TestProject and creating a test, I will choose the code option here, okay? And then I can just drag this file onto this drop zone, okay? And this file will be uploaded to the TestProject platform once I click the upload button. And this test is basically self-sufficient. You don't have to specify anything else besides the information that is already there. Some of the information is basically coming from the structure itself, and some of the information is coming from the annotations. So let's say here we had this annotation example login test. It is nice to have. It's not absolutely necessary. If you will not provide it, it will just use the method name. So it's up to you whether to include this or not. It's highly encouraged because this is the way it will look better. So here you can see that we have a class name, right? But we also have the name of the test, and the name of the test comes from the annotation and not from the method name, right? And it automatically knows basically what SDK version you have used because the SDK is part of the jar file that we have uploaded, right? So it basically says that, okay, now when you have uploaded a coded test, it's going to create a package. A package is like an aggregation of tests, and let's call it just my test or something. Okay, and once I'm done here, I will see that now I have a package called my tests, and inside of this package, I've got the example login test that we have seen before. But now this test is basically part of the TestProject platform because it resides in the cloud, and I can execute it remotely. And the most important part, that these tests can be nested as part of recorded tests. But let's just see how it looks like. When I click play here, it basically allows me to choose the agent where I want to get executed, right? And in this particular case, I will execute it on my agent. But I could, in the same manner, I could choose any agent that is currently residing in my account, even if this agent is absolutely distant agent located in some, I don't know, distant country in a lab or something. It will still ship this test to this agent and execute it there. So it's very convenient. You don't have to set up any infrastructure on the other end besides setting up an agent and associating it with your account. So once I just click run here, okay, you'll see in a moment that my agent will start the execution. It takes some time because the agent has to make sure that it has the latest test version available. But as you can see, eventually we have seen a Chrome window popping up. Okay, and once this execution is completed and done, we can head to the report section here, and we can refresh it, and we can see that now I have an execution of a test that has happened, and this was a remote execution and not coming from an IDE. Again, it's under the same project, right? But this is the point here. And since we are short on time, I will speed up a bit, and I want to show you something else. So now we have a coded test that we have created and we have uploaded to the platform. I want to change something in this test. I want to remove this navigation that we are doing here. Okay, I'll just comment it out, and then I'll create the jar again. And of course, I have to increase the version and so on and etc. But this is not the point of showing this here. And now I want to upload a new version of the test. Okay, so I'll just open this window again, drop this jar file again. Okay, wait until it gets uploaded. And since we have no navigation now, it means that the test can run. It will automatically fail, right? Because it won't be able to find these elements here. But the idea of doing this is basically to show you how can I combine. Okay, there are no conflicts. Great. Okay, let's save it. How we can combine recorded tests with coded tests. So I will create a recorded test, a web recorded test. And yeah, since again, we are short on time, won't be able to show you how it works with mobile, but it works seamlessly. Like you just create different capabilities and all the rest is the same. Now, we'll have a test called T1 here, okay? And for the example page application, right? So nothing changes here. And I'm just going to edit it. I'm not going to record it. I'm going to edit it really quickly. So what we are seeing here is basically that we have this navigation step, right? And nothing else. So let me just delete this parameter here. We won't need it. Okay, delete anyway, replace with defaults. Okay. And now we have this navigate to example TestProject IO web. Okay, and now I want to add a step, which is a test, right? And this is basically the example login test. So this sequence here, this example test that doesn't have this navigation now is basically just these commands here, right? So I can call it my login sequence, right? And this is the way it will look like. We have a recorded step, or again, it's just for demonstration, but you could have a full scenario here. And you have a coded step here, which is the login test. You can see it by the icon that is appearing here on the right. And now when I save it, okay, and I execute this T1 test here, now it says, okay, where would you like to execute it, on which browser, and so on, etc. You can even execute it on mobile, but I will just choose Chrome here for the demonstration purposes, okay? And now again, the agent will make sure that it has the latest version of this coded test that is basically nested inside of my recorded test. Something happens here. Let's see why it fails now. Okay, there was some error. Unable to parse remote upgrade required. Interesting. Let me see, how can I fix this really quickly? So Did I did something wrong? I don't know. Anyway, but the whole idea was to integrate this test as part of this one and to get this sequence executed. Let's try to do it from a recorder, maybe it will work there. I'm not sure what I missed here. Perhaps something easy that I forgot about. So yeah, we'll have now this example page here and the test project recorder. So if you play just this single particular step, it works. Okay, let's play the coded test. Okay, and here it works. Okay, so you can see basically that now it has performed the login, right? And we are seeing the logout button. So basically this nested scenario, which is a coded scenario, and sometimes for people who are developers, it's much easier to code their scenarios in some particular cases rather than using this recording mechanism for complex and advanced things. That, you know, instead of having like 20 or 30 steps here, sometimes you have already available logic that you would like to just, you know, squeeze into the test project. And doing so, then we can run the whole sequence here. Okay, and this is the way it works. So we have a success of showing this and this. Okay, now let's close this. Let's give it another try. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just something that happens before. So we can basically execute it here. You know what? Let's try to create a new job. Okay, so let's just create a web job 1. Okay, on my Chrome, and then put it here and see if this will do anything better. So we can, in theory, see here in the monitor. Okay, now it runs. Okay, now you can see basically that something is going to happen here, right? Okay, so this time it worked. Okay, inside the job, I'm not sure what was the original reason it didn't work as a test. Maybe I have to add something into my configuration, but now we have the job 1 that has been just executed, right? And we have the report here, okay? And what you can see now is that we have this single recorded step, and now we have the whole coded test as a single step, but you can see this icon here, which basically means that this is a coded test with multiple steps inside, okay? And when we're looking at these steps, we can basically see the same steps we have seen before that, right? With all the commands. And eventually we have the last step logged in successfully. And you can see there is a icon here. This icon basically means that we have a screenshot. I'm not sure why it's not loading yet, because maybe it takes some time to get processed, but the screenshot basically will show you the exact screen we have seen there. Okay, and again, we can basically nest coded tests inside recorded tests, and we can distribute the coded test using the TestProject platform to get executed on different agents. So in theory, I could execute this very test on Amit's agent, and Amit would see a browser popping up on his computer and showing you the execution, right? I think that this basically covers most of the basic demonstration. I would say that there are a lot of features beside the things I've shown you so far that are available on the GitHub page. Sometimes you want to disable the automatic reports. Sometimes you would like to use different testing frameworks, like for example, the TestNG, not necessarily JUnit 5 or something. You can catch the assertion reports, because if you remember, I was showing you before that the pure Selenium had these assertions here. So if you would like these to get logged into dashboards, you will have to implement something additionally to get this intercepted. Okay, so there's plenty of information on these GitHub pages. Don't hesitate to let us know if you have any questions. But before that, please go through this whole documentation and read it truthfully, because in general, it should answer any questions you might have. And if it doesn't, then let us know and we will just extend it. Okay, we've got some more time. I think I'm done here. And now let's head to the questions.
Feel free to write them down. Ratami, I see we have a lot of questions actually.
Right, thank you, Metal. So let's see.
I see we have a question. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Amit, sorry.
I see we have a question about what if there is a conflict in the jars.
I can't find it, but you want to answer it?
By Nixon. It's pretty in
the very
the
beginning.
latest.
Anyway, yeah, but it's not like if you have any conflicts, like the two different cases, I would say, when you might have any conflicts in the jar. Like, first of all, it can be a standard situation in which you are creating software, right? And you might have conflicts, so you'll have to resolve them, of course, locally. Otherwise, your code won't be able to run even locally inside of your IDE, right? And the way to basically avoid any kind of collisions with the TestProject SDK is just by removing any Selenium or Appium related libraries from your dependencies and just including the TestProject SDK so that you won't have any conflicts for this. And in general, this usually resolves the problem, right? Again, if you have any specific issue, then don't hesitate to contact us via our support channels and we'll have a look.
We have two questions, basically the same one. How can we test parameters to the coded test, if it's possible?
Right, like usually the way it works with unit tests and let's say the JUnit and stuff, you can either have a list of parameters hard-coded into your tests, or you can specify an external source or even a method and so on, etc. This is something that is indeed a feature that many people are asking for, and we are aware of the necessity of it. And it's actually work in progress. It is something that we should be releasing really soon, so that you can basically parameterize your tests by annotating them with some special annotation called the TestProject data provider. And so you will be able to provide this data from within the platform. It should be there in a couple of weeks, I believe. So stay tuned for that.
And I see we also have a question about if we can use the OpenSDK with Browser Stack and Source Labs, and it's definitely possible. And
yeah, it's actually part of the documentation as well. If you head to the GitHub page, let me share my screen just here really quickly again. So first of all, as I said before, we do have this button now here for the JavaScript SDK as well. So you can just go ahead and click it, right? And for the question about the cloud, oh, yeah, this is a different repository I wanted to show you. People were asking where they can get the code of the example I was showing you. So here in this repository, which is a template repository, you can just clone it and use it as a template. You have examples for all the programming languages that we have said that TestProject supports, right? And here in the Java, then if you search for remote cloud driver section, right, then you will find an explanation on how to provide a special capability, custom capability that TestProject needs in order to initialize the session, not with the local Selenium server that comes as part of the agent, but with the remote provider such as the Source Labs or Browser Stack. So in this particular case, this URL is taken from the Source Labs manuals, but it can be also a Browser Stack or any other platform that you would like to use in order to get your test executed there. Okay, so some people ask here if they can test mobile sites using the browser in OpenSDK. Yes, you can do it if you provide capabilities which will initialize, let's say, an Android driver, and then the browser name would be Chrome, for example. Then it will initialize a mobile web session on Android, and you will be able to execute your web tests against the browser running in a mobile device. So someone is asking here, Kostas is asking if I can show how to package and upload a coded iOS test. There's nothing different with packaging tests for different platforms rather than what I've just shown when you have to include the actual tests in their final jar. Like again, there are no additional dependencies or anything like this. All the difference of the infrastructure that is needed to run these tests is being handled by the agent. So your jar file will contain the same information, the same pure tests in any of the unit testing frameworks. There's nothing different between iOS, Android, and web besides what I've already shown before. Any sample code for iOS app? So yes, again, there is the, let's say, the Java repository, okay, Java SDK repository that I've shown you before. So here we have plenty of examples. You can see that basically you have either like simple flows without unit testing frameworks at all. You have examples of web tests, something we didn't discuss, but even how to use add-on proxies in web tests and mobile tests and so on, etc. You have examples of native application automation and even web tests on mobile browsers, such as the mobile Chrome and the mobile Safari. And you have examples of the major unit testing frameworks and the way we infer the information about the test name and the steps and so on, etc. for JUnit 4, JUnit 5, TestNG, and even the BDD Cucumber tests. If you're interested in something like this, so you can go ahead and review all these examples. It's at the very bottom of the repository documentation, and it's something that exists for other languages as well. So if I just hand here to C# OpenSDK, you can see that we have the same set of things here, but the testing frameworks are different. It's for MS Test and Unit, XUnit, and so on, etc. And it's the same for Python and JavaScript. Okay, so Marina Pelt says, congratulations to the winners. Ahmed is asking, where are we going to create an add-on? So the next session is about creating add-ons. So stay tuned, join the next session we have in a week from now. I will be showing how to create add-ons and how to extend your test automation capabilities by using these add-ons inside your recorded test or inside your coded test created using the OpenSDK. Is it possible to test desktop applications like exe and Windows? No, it is not possible. With TestProject, we are part of Tricentis, and Tricentis basically have Tosca for testing Windows applications. So yeah, there's another one here from Gaurav Gupta on how to test with browsers and Style Labs. So Gaurav, please refer to the documentation. And yeah, there's like plenty of other things. People asking how to see this recording. As usual, we'll be uploading this to YouTube and sending you the links and so on, etc. So yeah, sorry guys if we were not able to answer all the questions. There's just too many of them and not enough time to answer all of them right away here. If you need any kind of support, then please refer to our support channels and use our forum. Some people are nice and we appreciate that, answering based on their own experience. So don't hesitate and let us know. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Marat, for your time today and the knowledge you share with us for this practical presentation, and also Amit as well. It was a pleasure for me, and I'm sure that our community will agree with me as well. Now, before we leave, I just want to remind you, friend, that we're already preparing for the next session, the third session, like Marat mentioned, about the add-on and the final one in our bootcamp. So make sure to register and participate in the challenge. And I know you guys are waiting for it. So the certificates of this session are being sent to you right now. So check the spam folder if you can't find it, and feel free to reach out anytime. Again, as Marat mentioned, we will answer all the questions. So the team and I are always here to help. So feel free to reach out anytime. And that's it. Session 2 has completed. Keep sharing and spreading knowledge. Looking forward to seeing you and all of your awesome posts online on social. We will see you next week at session number 3, Empower Your Test Automation Using Addon. And please follow us because the recording will be sent to you after you guys are registered to this next session, and will be sent to you by email, as I mentioned, on the 25th. So make sure to follow, and we'll stay in touch. Take care, everyone, and all the best. Bye-bye. Hello to the best community ever, and thank you for joining the third and final testing bootcamp session. I hope you are safe and well wherever you are. I'm Mital, the head of community, and I can't believe this is the last session of our bootcamp together. But let's make sure it will be amazing. What do you say? We will definitely end this one with a bag. Just wait for it. So are you ready to get this started? Let's start the third and final session of the Testing Bootcamp 2021. Today, we are going to empower our inner testing ninja by leveraging the world's largest free test automation add-on library. We will cover the value of the add-ons within any test case, learn how to develop custom automation actions, solve our special quiz followed by Q&A, and finally, we will host a beloved guest that will share from his point of view about TestProject and from his experience. Also, by the end of this session, you will receive to your email a special certificate with the tag of the last session. And we will also send to each and every one of you, I know a lot of you are asking, so we will send to each and every one of you the full recording of the entire bootcamp by the 25th, meaning tomorrow. So please feel free to ask questions in the dedicated Q&A section in this Zoom, and we will make sure to address as many of them as possible. And last but not least, don't miss out the chance to participate in our TestProject Testing Bootcamp Challenge. All you need to do is post on your social media a creative video, meme, article, or infographic from one part you like the most about the bootcamp, pick one session or a couple you like, and share the fun with your friend. The lucky winner will get 3 amazing prizes you really want. I know I want. So you still got time, 8 days to be exact. We will announce the winner by the last day of this month. Okay, that's it from my side. Now let me present the heroes of today's session, the testing ninjas, the mentors who took you step by step through this entire bootcamp. Give it up for the one and only Marat Strulatz, co-founder and chief architect, and the fabulous Amit Lacher.
Hello, everyone.
Our head of solution engineer team. And for the last time in this incredible bootcamp, Amit, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So today we're going to talk about add-ons. As you might know, TestProject has one of the biggest add-ons library there are out there, with over 1,500 different actions you can choose from. All of these add-ons can be found at add-ons at TestProject.io. Let's see if we can send it in the chat for everyone so they can search them. So right here, add-ons at TestProject.io. If you're not sure if your action is there, you can check it out. So these add-ons can be used to automate common tasks in automation, such as performs for example, visual testing, or for example, API requests, database requests. Of course, all of our add-ons are basically a collection of ready-to-use actions coded in Java, which already solves common issues in automation that you otherwise would have to figure out on your own, or maybe even to code them. But using our library, you can simply add your add-on to your account. You can reuse it as many times as you want. Of course, all of our add-ons are 100% free to use. As I said, there is over 1,500 different actions which you can choose from. They save you a lot of development time because, as I said before, they are basically common automation issues that we already provided a solution for in the form of this coded action, which are the add-ons. You can see already some of them: the click visible, the JavaScript, the CSS value. These are some examples that we have. So moving on to the next slide, we have the add-ons that we are gonna show in today's webinar. So this is the actions I'm going to focus on. We have the image comparison, which brings a lot of screenshots and element screenshot utilities. We have the swipe and find an element. We have the RESTful API, which I'm going to demonstrate here live. And we also have the get color, which I can also show. The actions are available for iOS, for Android, for web, and some of them are generic actions, which can be used in any test. For example, like get current time, or or evaluate mathematical expression. So you can essentially use any add-ons that you want that is available, as we already posted in the chat, at addons@testproject.io. So moving on to the next slide, we have, it's time to actually show you the add-on. So let me share my screen and I will hop onto the TestProject platform and show you how it looks like. So first of all, we need to share the screen. So let's open a new tab. So first of all, let's go and open a project. Let's create a clean project for us. So let's create a new test. Let's create a web test. And let's call it example test. Let's add a new application for testing. We can go with any application here. So let's do something like, let's just go with Airbnb.com. We just need an application to land on for our execution to successfully execute. So let's move on. And let's record the test. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how you can utilize something like an API request. And a lot of people think an API request is complicated, but we're going to do it step by step. It's actually pretty easy. So what we're going to do here, we're not going to do any interaction with actually Airbnb. I just selected an application to land on. What we're going to focus here is on add-ons and how we can add steps manually. So to use add-ons, it's pretty simple. What we need to do here is add a step manually, select our action, and then we can simply write our own test by simply creating multiple steps. So let's start with something I found. So let's start with an HTTP GET request.
I just want to emphasize something here, Amit, that basically usually when people interact with the page, they also have lots of add-ons that interact with the UI. But particularly in this case, since this action is not interacting with the UI on the page or with the mobile application, that's the reason basically why you have to add this step manually, because there's no element to invoke this action on, right? So that's basically the reason.
Right, exactly. So explaining what Marat is saying can be shown here. So if I add a click on this step, you can see that a step is made of by an action and an element. But because we are actually performing an API request here, we don't have an element, so we don't need to interact with the UI in order to create this step. So we can simply add a step manually using this option. So let me add here a request, and this is a simple HTTP GET request. It's nothing complicated, and this request gets a lot of fields, but I will show you, I will explain one by one what we can do here. And basically, what we can do here is we can use our endpoint URL here. I will show it in a moment. If we have a query, we can add it. Our headers, will be added in this manner. So for example, an authorization header will be added like this. For example, followed out by a comma, and then my second header here. So this is how the headers field accepts keys. And we don't actually have an authorization key in this case. So moving on, our expected status should be 200 at almost all the time. So I'm going to enter my expected status here. We also have a JSON path using JWay, and I will explain how to do that in a moment. We can choose if we want to ignore untrusted certificates or not, add a path to a JSON schema, which we don't need, create a file if you want the output the data into a text file. We don't need it. We have a lot more options, as you can see here. And from all of this, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I will show you the API points which I'm going to use, which is a public API which I found on GitHub right here. And this public API basically will return us an image of a cat. So let's take a look on how it looks like. So this is what the API I've found, the cat API. So we can see that we need to send a GET request to this URI. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to add this here to the URI endpoint. My expected status is 200. And the output, which I'm going to get, is going to be in a JSON format. So let's save this step and see what it looks like. So we executed the API request, and we got a 200 response. And we got a JSON here with an ID, with a web URL, with a lot of things. And what I'm looking for here is actually the image, right? So as you can see, I can see that this is the image URL. And this means that it is attached to the second key, which is the URL key. So now we need to build a JSON path using JWay. So it will look something like this. So we know that, let's copy this here so we can easily work on this. So we're going to copy the JSON in here for a moment, just so we can create a JSON path easily. We're going to show you how it looks like. So from everything, we need the URL basically. So this is a pretty easy one. And this will basically parse this JSON string, and will only return us the value of the URL key. Okay, so let's remove this from here. So this is our JSON path. So let's save this step and run it again. So now we can see that the server has responded with a 200 status code. Of course, the value of our JSON path is this. So this is the output that we are currently getting, which is already good enough because we can use this output. And as you can see, this is what we have parsed from the entire JSON. So moving on, let's add an output parameter on the response. Let's create a response let's create a parameter that will hold the response for us. This can be the URL. It can be the cat URL. And we don't need to give any value because we are getting the value from the API endpoint. Now let's save this. And now that we will run it again, we will have the URI of the cat image responded into our parameter. So we can see here that we have a current value. So we can add another step to navigate to URL. And the URL we're navigating to is the cat URL. So let's save this and let's run this step. So you can see that we have the actual cat right here. And now this is basically an easy example of how you can use our client, our API client, our RESTful API client. It basically contains all of the HTTP REST methods, get, post, everything that you are looking for. And all of them can be found on addons.testproject.io right here. So if you are looking, let's minimize this for a moment. So if you will look here for our REST API, you can see that we have a full RESTful API client, which contains all of these actions here. So all we need to do is go to the test project, add it to our account, and we can use it in our test. So now let's add some visual testing as well. So we already have an image here. So let's talk a bit about visual testing. So we also have that in test project as well. And this we can actually also do from the UI, because visual testing is usually performed on elements. So we can hover on this image. As you can see, there's not much in this page, so it's quite straightforward. We can use double shift to freeze this element. And now from actions, we can choose take element screenshot. So this add-on comes from the image comparison, allows us to save an image of an element, and then later on compare this image against another image or against the UI itself. So it is a very powerful add-on as well, which allows for easy UI visual testing. So we have added this take element screenshot option. Let's use this folder right here. And let's save this. So let's quickly run our test and see what it looks like. So with less than, so we don't even need this step right here. So basically with 3 actions, 3 steps, I'm performing an API test. I'm performing a navigation to a URL. I'm checking that this URL is also responsive. And I'm also taking a screenshot of an element, which is also a visual testing. And all of this in 3 steps. So let's run this test. So now we're querying the API, and we will get a different image, of course, as you can see here. We will also take a screenshot of this element, and you can see here I have ctemp open, and you can see that I have the cat image right here. So if we run this again, we will have a different image saved to our temp directory. So this is and also a very strong, a very powerful add-on that we have, right? Very powerful add-on that we have, which allows us to basically control the visual testing on our test. So let's say I would like to compare this image, and I can also do that. Let's go back and I will show you how it works. So let's do the visual testing actually before the API testing. Of course, in my case, they will not be related because my visual testing will be performed here on the Airbnb site. while the actual API testing will be performed on a different API endpoint. But let's look, for example, on this search query. So for example, I can take this generic web element. I can use double shift to freeze it. And using actions, I can simply choose take element screenshot. And I can save this file right here. And you can see right here in my temporary directory that we have a screenshot of this element right here. So extremely easily, I can now add another step in my test. So let's change the name to search icon. And now let's add a validation after we navigate to the site to compare the image against this. So let's use an action, compare. So we can compare an image with the UI element. Our image that we are comparing against would be temp/search icon dot JPG. Let me make sure that it is correct, and it is. So this can be the same directory. So basically, all we need is an image to compare against. So if we run this again.
If it's not much of a hassle for you, could you please show how you can parameterize things? Because people are basically asking how to provide dynamic values.
To what? Sorry, I didn't see the question.
Just like add a parameter or something to, like, let's say the URL or something. Yeah.
We have showed it already, but I'll show it again, no problem. So add a parameter just to any step, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just,
yeah. No, we can do that.
Keep the URL as a parameter or something, just to demonstrate how parameterization test project easily can be implemented.
Okay, no problem. So let's remove this for a moment. So basically, if we want to add a parameter to use in our test, it's quite easy. All we need to do is to add a new parameter. We can do it from the parameters tab. We can add a test parameter, which can be only used within this test. Or we can add a project parameter, which can be used across all of our tests in the same project. So creating test parameters is extremely easy. We need to click here, and we'll give it a name. So parameter 1, for example. We can give it a default value if we wanted to. And we can encrypt it by choosing make secret if we wanted to. And then this parameter will also be hidden in our reports. So let's save this parameter and see how we can use it. So and one example of that is to, for example, use this URI in my parameter. So I'm going to use a parameter, as you can see here. I'm going to add a parameter 1, and I'm going to give it the value of my endpoint URL. So this would be cat URL, cat API URL. Right, so now instead of typing a static value by using this text, I'm now using a parameter which can be changed from an outside source, such as a CSV file for a data-driven test, or from even an API call or something similar. So this is an example of how you can utilize parameters in here. You can do the same for your JSON path, for your expected status. Any field in this call can accept parameters, as you can see here on the top right. So every field here accepts parameters. So let me know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I believe it's clear. I mean, we should proceed with that.
Okay. So basically, we have the query, we have the navigation, we can take an element screenshot. Now let's look on dynamic scrolls, which is something a lot of our of new users struggle with, is to how can I scroll dynamically to somewhere. So let me show you exactly how you can do that. So first of all, let's make a search here. Let's add a guest, and let's choose the button here, and let's add an action to click on it. So we can add an action, we can record the step, or we can manually edit from the spy option, which is double shift again. Let's save this. Let's perform these left. And now let's run everything until here. We have a question about whether it's not whether the compare screenshots to elements can compare size, color, and pixel against the save image, and it is actually exactly what it does. It is comparing the screenshot we took earlier against the current screenshot of the element, exactly pixel to pixel, size to size, and color to color. If they do not have an exact match, it will not work. So seems like I have an issue here from previous tests. Yes, this is an already. Let me see what it is. Let's just record it again. Let's use this one. So we have implicit hard-coded weight. You can use the pause add-on. So there is a pause add-on, that's correct, but we can also simply add a weight on each step that we want to wait before or after. Okay, so moving on to the next add-on that we have the add-on which dynamically scrolls to elements. So sometimes we have a scroll down like here, and we want to reach a specific element, for example, this one. So what we can do, we can find it, and we can add an action, scroll to elements, and by simply using this add-on, I can run it, and it will automatically find this element for me, as you can see here. So this is a very powerful add-on as well, which can be used in your test to automatically locate elements in scroll downs or drop downs and etc. So yeah, this is basically it. We also have an add-on to get the color. So let me show this one more time. We also have, let's run from here. So this is again the API request. And using images, for example, or elements in general, we can also use the action get color. so we can get the color of an element as well. And we can have an expected color with an RGB output. We can see the dominant color here, which is also a very useful add-on. So this is a basically commonly used powerful add-on. Of course, I cannot cover all of them because, as we have already mentioned before, there are over 1,500 different actions. And yeah, that's it. So moving on to Marat, which will show you actually how to develop an add-on, and also have some exciting news about the OpenSDK questions some of you asked last time. So moving to Marat.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you, Amit. This was a great presentation about how to use add-ons. And before we'll start talking about how to create this and how you can extend your automation by your custom add-ons with common tasks and challenges that can be resolved using these nice plugins that we have, I would like to speak about something that we were basically asked about last time. So let me share my screen here really quickly. In the last webinar, we talked about how to parameterize coded tests that are created with the OpenSDK. So indeed, it is possible. What you have basically to do is to use a framework that allows you parameterizing your tests, such as, for example, the JUnit or the TestNG. And hopping straight to the, let me just turn on here the presentation mode. So basically, last time we discussed the OpenSDK, we have created a test, login example test, which basically navigated to a page, typed in some credentials, and then it was verifying that the logout button is being displayed. And now I would like to switch back to this mode here and show you an alternative variant of the same test. So let me, okay, so as you can see, the difference is basically that instead of being annotated with just a test annotation, now it's being annotated with the parameterized test annotation that JUnit 5 provides. And an additional change here is basically that we are adding this argument source annotation that will allow the TestProject agent to parameterize this test in runtime. And this variable here, the string name, is going to be populated with the value that you are providing either from the UI of TestProject or from an external data source, so that this test will be generic and it will type in a different name every time it tries to log in into this example page. And once you have it all here, let me just exit this presentation mode. Once you have it here, this basically allows you to package this test and upload it to the TestProject platform. And when you do so, switch here to this window. When you do so, then basically what you will get, besides having the example login test we had last time, we'll also have an additional test here, the parameterized test. And when you will execute it, it will present you with the list of parameters that we have there. In this particular case, it's the name. So if I type in here, let's say webinar 2, okay, and run this test, you will see that basically when the Chrome window will spawn and the test execution will start, we will see that it types in the webinar 2 in the name field, right? You could probably see it really quickly, and then we can have a look at the report here. And then we can see basically that this execution here, last execution, had the webinar 2 value inputted. And also the most important part, as I mentioned, is if you put this test into a job, like this job, for example, sorry, this one, okay? So we have the example login test, and this is the parameterized version. As you can see, we also have a data source attached, okay? This is a data source that I've created before. Basically, it's, let me show you the file here. Just a moment. So we'll use this. Okay. And this is the file I wanted to show you. Okay, so basically this is the data source that we are going to use. And when we will provide the values for the name parameter, this will be the values we will execute the job. So running this job really quickly here, if I just click on this play button, you will see when the Chrome browser is being launched, it will get launched 3 times. Every time it will use a different value from the data source. Okay, and it will use the different parameters. So first it was the Jon Snow, now Andrew Blake, and now the David Wu. Okay, and this is your way of basically creating coded tests, uploading them to TestProject, parameterizing them, and providing these parameter values from external sources. And a moment ago, I was showing you basically the documentation of how it needs to be done. So you will have to add something into the build Gradle that will allow you basically to output the tests into your jar file, and then something else that you will have to do in order to expose the parameter names of your functions. And the last thing that needs to be done is, of course, as I mentioned before, is to configure the TestProject parameterizer here on top of your tests. Okay, so this is the change, the major change that needs to be done in your code. And the same goes for TestNG. So just for TestNG, you are providing a data provider class. So just to finalize the whole picture of what we discussed last time about the OpenSDK, of how to parameterize the OpenSDK tests. And now we'll be heading straight to the point of how to create add-ons. So as Amit basically already mentioned, we've got around 1,500 different actions coming from all types of add-ons that the community has already created, and we as TestProject as well. We've got stuff like the RESTful API client, for example, that allows you to test the different API actions, such as put, get, delete, and post, which is very, very usable. People like it, and people use it for API testing. We've got stuff like the SQL databases tests, for example. We've got the PostgreSQL, MS SQL, MySQL, and so on and etc. So if you're testing Oracle or any other type of database, Teradata, DB2, whatever it is, usually Selenium and Appium do not provide such capabilities. Since TestProject have the recorder, we would like to expose this functionality as part of your UI tests. But these are basically generic actions. They're not doing anything specific with the UI of the application you are testing, but more like a generic automation of other things that are not UI based. And besides this, we also have here in the platform itself, if I'll just switch to this window here, we've got other stuff like, for example, PDF actions, or I don't know, Dropbox actions that allow you to upload files to Dropbox or execute shell commands and so on and etc. So that you can basically extend your automation with other things besides Appium and Selenium instead of coding this. And the question is, if you don't find anything here, how you create one of your own to extend the automation even further with your specific needs. So people were asking of how to take, for example, screenshots of the whole website and not just specific page. It requires you to scroll the page in order to take multiple screenshots and then to combine them all together. So this can all be achieved once you will be developing an add-on of your own. And to do this, basically what you have to do is to open this add-ons section here, navigate to My Add-ons, click on this Create Add-on button. Okay, and here basically you can provide a name for your add-on. Let's call it an example add-on. And then you can provide an optional link for the code, the documentation link, some tags if they apply. And the next step would be selecting permissions for your add-on. So add-on are basically executed in a sandbox so that the add-on cannot interact with your file system, cannot access the network, so it can't basically download or upload anything from your environment to the internet. And this basically allows you some sort of security layer and restrictions from operating things you do not want the add-on to be operating. So it's very similar to installing an application on your phone. And when you do so, basically you are presented with a list of permissions. Let me show you how it looks like. For example, this, let's say the Android Monkey, right? So this particular add-on, it has these types of permissions. So it can access your file system, and it can access the ADB bridge, which basically means that it can do anything it wants with a device that it operates on. So when you install an add-on, you can basically see what permissions this add-on requires, and if you are somehow restricted and your organization does not allow you to expose anything, then you should take this into account. But in general, as I mentioned before, when you create an add-on, you can, as we said, create an add-on which is absolutely unrestricted. And this is basically what in general you should be doing when you start developing an add-on. Then you have to download something we call a manifest. Okay, so we'll download JSON file here, click on next, and now it asks you to upload the add-on. So of course, in order to upload the add-on, first you have to create it. And I will show you really quickly how it looks like. So we've got an example of an add-on here. This is something that we are using again as an example for how add-ons should be created. It is also, the code is also available here in the TestProject IO group add-ons. Okay, so we have examples here. We have, for example, the web example, and here you can find the code of the both actions we're going to discuss. One is the clear field action, another one is the type random font action. So how it works. In general, action is implementing an interface. So you create a class, okay, and this class, let me just switch here to the presentation mode so it will be easier to read. And the class implements an interface that forces you to implement a specific method. Okay, in this particular case, you should implement the execute method that receives helper, okay, and potentially throws a failure exception. You can also implement other interfaces, such as, for example, an iOS action or the Android action. Okay, some actions can be based on elements, and therefore you will be implementing the element action interface, but we will discuss this in a moment. We will see the other action I would like to show you. And once you implement this method here, basically what you get this helper, which is the entry point of interacting with the UI that is being tested in case you need it. Again, as we said, if you are developing something generic that interacts with database or an API or the file system, you can implement something we call a generic action. And generic action basically do not need to have a helper. Well, it's a generic helper, it's just an add-on helper, okay? In this particular case, it was the web add-on helper. Okay, so I'll just go back to web action. And this helper basically provides you with two important things. One is an access to the driver that is being used for automating the whole test. You don't initialize a driver, but since the action is running as part of the more generic test, right, a complete sequence of events, you just get a driver that has been already initialized as part of your test initialization. So when you have a driver, then you can perform the other actions you would like this add-on to perform. In this particular case, what this add-on is doing, it just searches for all the form elements on the page. And if it's currently displayed, then it clears the element if it's an input element. And if everything goes well, then just infers that everything is fine and returns this result here. If it would fail, then the exception would be also returned to the automation engine, and you will see it either in the test project recorder or the execution report. Okay, so we can see it basically in action. We can have a test created here really quickly. Okay, and before I close it, let me just quickly duplicate it. So we said that what we should do, we should create a new test in the webinar project. Okay, and it will be a web test. It's called T6. perhaps all the Hefty file, and then it's an example page. Okay, and I'm going to record it. Okay, and when the recorder opens, then as we said before, Amit was showing you how to use the different actions and mainly generic actions. But in this particular case, what I can do is just add a step, okay, and then search for the clear fields. Okay, and then I have plenty of them because it's all types of different variants I have uploaded before. But this is the right one because this comes basically from the Java web example. Okay, and it's available in the store, so you can give it a try. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to save this step, and it's probably doing something, right? But I don't have any data here, so let me just type in some data for demonstration purposes. Okay, and then run this action. And it's all clear. Okay, so this is the way this particular action works. The second action I wanted to show you is basically an action that interacts with an element on the page, and therefore it implements the web element action. And when doing so, what I'm getting here is basically not only the driver through the helper, but also I'm able to find the different elements that I would like to use. For example, using the search criteria that is being provided to the element. So I'm just invoking the helper.getSearchCriteria, okay? And I can find the element that this action is being invoked on, and then I'm sending some textual info to this particular element. Beforehand, what is happening here is basically that a random phone number is being generated and is being assigned to an output field. Okay, as you can see, this particular field is annotated with, let me just enter this presentation mode so that you can see better. These two, by default, if it's not mentioned otherwise, are input fields. Okay, so when this action is being invoked, you can specify a country code, and you can specify the maximum amount of digits that should be used to generate the random phone number. But this particular field is the field where you want to get the result of this action. And therefore, it's annotated with the parameter annotation specifying this field as an output. And the value that is being assigned, okay, this value in here is something you will be able to see in the action results. So when I invoke this action, let me quit this presentation mode here and get back to the test that we are recording. So let me just stop the recording here and type in my name and some password. Okay, and I want to enter the phone number here, but instead of doing it manually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight this element. Since the action I'm going to invoke is an element action, I'm going to search for a random phone number action. And again, I have plenty of them, but this is the right one. Okay, and now what I can do, I can specify the country code. So let's say I'm UK, so it's 44. And the max digits I would like to use to generate the phone, let's say 5 digits, okay? And then I can also assign a parameter, an output parameter for the phone number that is going to be generated. So let's create here a new parameter, call it phone, okay? And then I'm going to save it. And now when I invoke this action, as you can see, I'm getting the phone number being populated inside of the element. And this, thanks to this code here, which basically generates this information, assigns the value to a parameter, finds the element that I would like to get populated with the value that has been generated, and then sends this textual information in the form of a random phone number to the element that has been specified for the automation. Now, two things that are important to mention here, and perhaps everyone is currently seeing this, is that this element here will be always null. Please pay attention. This is something that is being deprecated. You can see some notes about this in our documentation. We no longer provide the element. We basically require the action to search for the element itself because, well, for multiple reasons, but please do not use this element here. It will go away in the next releases. So the way to go is by helper.getSearchCriteria that returns a by instance, okay? And using this by instance, you are able to invoke the driver.findElement using this by criteria. That's one important thing I wanted to mention. And the second important thing I wanted to mention is basically that the Addons SDK is not the OpenSDK. The Addons SDK is a different thing. You can download it if you navigate to the integration section, and then you choose the develop an add-on. Of course, you will need a developer token, but here you're downloading a jar file, a local jar file, and to install it into your project, you have to specify that this is a local file. Okay, so you just specify it is your local path. Okay, same for Maven, same for Gradle. And another important thing I was discussing with you before is the manifest, right? So once you have the SDK installed and you have your code here available and ready, you want to package it. Before you can package it, you have to add a manifest resource to your project. So in this particular case, what you should be doing is, if you remember, right here, I have downloaded the manifest. Okay, and now it asks me to upload the add-on. So if I will try to package this add-on here without replacing this manifest here that comes from a different place and not the one I have just created, and I package it as a jar file, and then I drop this jar file onto this field here and I upload it, it will basically complain and it will tell me that this is an incorrect add-on GUID. Okay, but if I will grab this manifest file that I have downloaded before, put it here and replace it, okay, and I will compile the jar file again, and I will drop this jar file again, then it will be all good. And then the information about the add-ons inside the jar file will be reflected. It will present the list of actions that this add-on provides. It will also ask me to specify, in case of element actions, what are the element types that this action should be applicable to, so that it will not pop up for any element you highlight in the recorder. In this particular case, since this action types in some value into textual fields, perhaps you want to specify it as text box. Okay, and then what you will have, basically, once you finish this procedure, you will have this add-on one here that I have created with those two actions that I've shown you before, and you can use this inside of your recorder. One last important thing that basically is also something that you should be aware of is that we allow you to use these add-ons as part of your coded tests when you're using the OpenSDK. So let's say you have an add-on that knows how to store files on Dropbox. Okay, so this add-on, for example. Okay, and you would like to use it as part of your coded test. So you don't have the source for this, but what you can do, you can generate a proxy here for the TestProject OpenSDK. Okay, and this proxy basically is a Java file that you can embed into your OpenSDK test. And then if I navigate here to some documentation we have on that, okay, you've got some examples here of how it can be done. So this example here basically demonstrates how you can invoke add-ons. As you can see, we have driver.addon, something that the pure Selenium and Appium do not have, but this is an extension from TestProject. And you can basically execute an add-on from within your OpenSDK coded test. The only thing you have to do basically is to embed the Java file that has been downloaded here, as I shown you before, and this will become part of your code and will present you with additional capabilities. So let me show you how it looks like, particularly for the close the recorder. We don't need this and this anymore. And I wanted basically to show you how to download the example add-on, right? So the example, the Java web example add-on was generated proxy for the SDK. Okay, and then we can drop it here. Okay, and what you get is basically a class called the Java Web Example Add-on. Okay, with list of classes for each of the actions that are inside of it. Okay, and as you can see, we have the clear fields action, we have the type random font action. Okay. And then if you are creating a coded test, that what you should be doing, you should be calling the Java Web Example Add-on .get clear fields action to get an instance of it, which is basically something that extends an action proxy. Okay. And if I head back to this documentation here, as you can see, we have the driver.addons.execute that expects an addon proxy instance that is being provided by the Java Web Example addon get clear fields action. And then what this is doing, it invokes the action from within the addon that is basically not something that you own. It's code. It's just like a bridge of executing someone else's code from the library on TestProject. And basically, this is it in general. I suggest you reviewing all the examples we have here at the TestProject add-ons. So let's say you're interested in how things work. We have this RESTful API client, for example. It is very famous and people are using it for API testing. And it has plenty of documentation, of course, but you can actually see the source code here to see how it has been created. So if you have any questions about how to package things, how to develop add-ons, how to specify, let's say, the action description, as you can see, we have this double curly brackets here to use the input parameters in the add-on action description in the recorder. So it's all here. Just have a look at it. And we have plenty of other add-ons that we have published their source codes, including the examples here, if you would like to review them. And this should give you a good start. And of course, if you have further questions, then we have a dedicated category in our forum to answer any of your technical questions you might have. So, having said that, I think that I can stop sharing now, and I can basically turn and return the stage back to my colleagues here. Mital, I think we are ready for the other parts.
Indeed. Thank you, Marat and Amit. Now moving forward to our special quiz for the final session and testing your knowledge while learning about your experience with the add-ons.
Okay, so yeah, let's answer to Monica about her question, how to send an automatic email. So we got plenty of add-ons for sending emails through the different providers, such as SMTP or IMAP and stuff. But if your question is related to how to get an automatic notifications for executions, then any job have this setting. Basically, when an execution is completed, then you should receive an email with details of the execution results. And hope I answered both of the variants of what you were asking. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what else you've got here? Can I use an encryption method for parameter values stored in the data source file? Well, at this point, we do not support encrypted data sources, but since the data source itself is stored locally, when you use the SDK, for example, then you can definitely, again, execute it and without any kind of concern that this will somehow get exposed. You can specify parameters that are being used as secret parameters, and therefore also not to expose them, for example, in the reports. But the data source itself should be not encrypted. There's so many here.
Yeah,
something that you recognize.
We have a question about how can we read an OTP value. We actually have an add-on for that as well. Talking about add-ons, it is one of the add-ons which is available in the store. Search OTP and you will be able to find it. We have a question about if we can use page objects model. Yes, TestProject completely supports this. Actually, when you are recording your test, all the elements will be saved into the elements folder. You can then create folders and organize the elements inside as you see fit. And let's see if we have anything else here.
There's a question here about how to know the test case pass percentage without opening the report. I'm not sure if the action itself of clicking an icon is the question here, but you can also get the reports from using our API. The RESTful API that we have basically allows you to do many things, such as querying for agents, projects, tests, and also the test execution reports. So if you have any external system you would like to get integrated with, this is the way to go, and just navigate to api.testproject.io.
I see we also have a question about what happens if add-ons get taken down. So add-ons should not get taken down. So you can feel free to use them. Sometimes add-ons do get updated. So we highly suggest from time to time, go into the add-ons tab and check if there is an update available for the add-ons you are using in your account.
Let me just provide here a quick correction. So in theory, yeah, someone can indeed decide that he wants his add-on to get removed from the store. But again, when he uploads this add-on and shares it with the community, he basically agrees that whoever installs this add-on can stay and keep using it. It's just that the add-on will no longer appear in the store for further downloads. But if you already have it installed in your account, then it should be there until you decide otherwise.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so we have more here about Gaurav Gupta is asking, can we redirect to different domain from the existing domain, meaning any restrictions for modifying domain in between the execution, same origin policy? It's a complex question, like depends on what exactly you're doing. You can still, navigate to a different page and there should be no problem with that. If you have some kind of issues with the same origin, then perhaps it's related to iframes and stuff like this. I suggest you should be asking this directly via our intercom support or the forum, because I'm not sure again what exactly you mean by in between the execution.
We have a question about what happens if we generate code containing add-ons. So, and if we can edit them. So basically, when we generate code, we get also the add-ons that this code is using, right? And we can open it in our IDE, and then we can see which method these steps are using, and we can then customize them, right?
Yeah, so it uses basically the same technique I was explaining before. When you have a recorded test that uses add-ons and you would like to get this code generated in the code and continue developing this test in your IDE or run it locally, then basically what you get is a bunch of classes as proxies of the original add-ons. And then when the OpenSDK test is being executed, these proxies invoke the add-ons code, everyone in its turn. And you don't have the actual add-ons code, but you can still execute.
Right. So you can customize the test, but the add-ons themselves will work via the proxy. So the actual code of the add-ons will not be manipulated in this way.
Right. Someone is asking here if it's possible, Ahmed is asking if it's possible to extend existing add-ons. So if the add-on is an open source add-on, then you can go ahead and extend it, or you can suggest us or the developer doing so, but it's beyond our control. Basically, if someone doesn't want his add-on to get extended, you can just, again, if the source code is available, you can create one of your own and call it an extended version or something. You can try contacting the original developer or us if it's TestProject, and we will consider that. Generate code for test containing add-on. Can we see it in code and further customize it? Yes, as I mentioned, you can do it. Basically, you can see the invocation of the add-on as it was in the original recorded test. You can customize it further by providing different parameters or by invoking different other actions from within the same add-on. So there should be no reason why not. Like it's still code, right? So if you're into coding, then you can go ahead and do it.
Right. And yeah, this basically, and I see Vital, I think this is one is for you. We have someone asking about certificates for the session.
Oh, definitely. That's actually a good one. So thank you, Amit. Please, guys, everyone that hasn't received his certificate for the first session or for the second or for this one, please make sure to send me a direct email to my email or on LinkedIn. So my email is, I'm just going to write here in the chat so you guys can see it, and feel free to send me an email and I'd love to answer and send you the certificates. So no worries about that.
One last addition to this whole add-ons. Some actions do not actually require a dedicated add-on because they are JavaScript actions. So we have an add-on called execute JavaScript. So if you have anything to do with let's say WebSockets or, for example, I don't know, like stuff that you can do in the client side, usually that you write a JavaScript to make them work. The easiest way to go would be perhaps just by creating, using the action for execute JavaScript, and then writing JavaScript inside of this action parameters to execute it in the browser as part of your automation. And then you can do lots of other things that are not possible using the Selenium driver on the agent side. And this is it, I guess.
Yes, this is it. Thank you so much for our dearest mentor who shared with us their knowledge and expertise, their tips and tricks, and help us being better in our test automation. Marat and Amit, it was such a pleasure learning from you and getting all of your insight about TestProject. I really appreciate it, guys. And now I have a special surprise. I want to introduce, as you can see, a great friend, a VIP user from the time the TestProject only started its automation journey. I want to welcome Santosh Yakala, a quality assurance engineer and DevOps engineer, who I'm sure you are familiar with as a very active member in our test automation community. Santosh, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Mital. Thanks for that. Hi, everyone. So I have been working as a quality engineer from last 12 years, and also recently from last 4+ years, I've started working as a DevOps engineer as well. So to start with, in today's session, I'll go through some of the challenges which we have encountered. So main challenge which we have faced is we have so many manual testers in our current organization. So we want to upskill them into the automation testing, and we couldn't find an appropriate tool or an SDK. And also with respect to automation test engineers, we have so much mixed skill set like C#, Java, Python, and also JavaScript users. Previously, we used to use this test manager, which is a Microsoft tool, and now slowly that has got deprecated, and we couldn't find any collaboration tool or distribution platform to distribute all our test cases. And also it was a little bit time taken when we want to identify tools and to enhance the manual testers into automation testers. The coding skills, the level of coding skills which are required was also one of the challenge. And apart from this, there are a couple of many limitations which we have gone through in identifying the tools. One of the usage is like using the tool. We have I myself personally have gone through many tools like Cypress, Catalan, and also the free tool Selenium Grid, and understanding the architecture. Like if you go with the Selenium Grid, it needs many nodes if you want to use multiple browsers, and the language support, which we have also looking at the C#, Java, Python, all these things. And there are Cypress doesn't support Safari and IE. And Catalan, if you want to use them in DevOps, Catalan needs a runtime engine, and it is only available in enterprise licensing. And reports, when we want to integrate any of the reports, we have to go through the extent reporting or any of other reporting. And for logging, log mechanism, we used to use Log4net. It is not very straightforward when we want to integrate this end-to-end automation and also the collaborating the team in DevOps. And also, as many of the organizations says that we are not very much keen in spending enterprise applications, and much of licensing costs is one of the main constraints. When before starting TestProject or integrating the TestProject in our projects, so I have been like using or seeing TestProject from 2016, and when was even in early beta versions, I've got this early invite. So I was associated with the TestProject in using it, TestProject agent, and it's the way of its working. And recently, we have completely migrated all our Selenium, Appium, and also the REST Sharp API test automation completely into TestProject. So why TestProject? So we have seen majority of our manual testers moved into automation testers, like by using the Smart Test Recorder and its AI capabilities. At the straightaway point, if we asked them to code, there was a very slight challenge in making the team very much happy. and almost all 80% of my teammates or a manual testing team is moved into an automation test engineer. And we have completely removed the Excel sheet dependencies. We started using the share center to share across our geographical locations. So my team has almost 180 people across geolocations. So we started collaborating using TestProject, and it's an official TestProject test automation script or official account which we are using. And as we everybody know that TestProject is having its own inbuilt reports, and to be I think from 2.0, I believe. So we have this local HTML reports. So we use both HTML and PDF reports, and we use more of extensive of these free APIs. And we also schedule many of the automation test scripts using our API calls. And we have many browser supports like Chrome. Even we recently started using this Firegate, many of these benefits. And more challenge is like integrating all this with the DevOps and fetching the reports and publishing the reports as part of the DevOps pipeline. We have integrated very much seamlessly with TestProject, and test agents its main capability, and we have a high core performance servers which we have configured test agents, and where we are capable of running almost 200 plus test cases in 10-15 minutes by using parallel execution. And this single SDK, as I mentioned before, we have removed all the Selenium, like removed in the sense converted all our Selenium, Appium, and REST projects into TestProject OpenSDK. And there is still migration is going on. Still, we are migrating, and almost all, I would say, 60% of our current project or previous projects have been migrated into TestProject SDK. And we use this TestProject API calls to schedule our jobs and also fetch our reports. And even if there is any latest agent, we also use this API call to update our existing agents using these API calls. And reports, extent reporting has been completely removed, and we are using only TestProject reports. We are following both completely hybrid and offline model. When I say the hybrid model, in the sense cloud. So cloud, we are also using the smart test recorders. So when we onboard any of the team who are not familiar with automation or automation test scripts, we onboard them, and the tour which TestProject is having itself gives them the insight like how to use the TestProject web app and test agents and all once they go into in-depth. So that's how we started making manual testers more into an automation testers. And TestProject has, I personally feel TestProject has solved many of problems. And I'm recently started working as a quality manager in my organization right now. So this has given me more flexibility, taking this OpenSDK and TestProject itself whole as a bundle to my higher management, and getting a very high acceptance to start using this framework or tool or open source, whatever we can name as a TestProject community. And they are pretty much happy with the TestProject, and it is a very successful, and it has given me a very high chance of collaborating more geolocation teams into a single team without having any dependency to communicate or anything. Externally by sharing the test cases or in an email. It's a single repository where we see all our test results and the test execution status. So that's it from my side. At a high level, it's a pretty fast because it's already late. I just don't want to drag out too much of time in explaining many things.
No worries, Santosh. It was amazing. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it for your time today and for sharing your story with us. I think it was amazing to summarize the final session of this bootcamp with this, Santosh, about your way and all the challenges along the way and how you handle it with TestProject. So it's really an inspiration to all of us in the team to keep pushing for the community and make sure our users are satisfied and getting the best experience. Thank you, Santosh.
Thank you.
And now, guys, before we leave, one last reminder. There are 8 days left to conquer our test project testing bootcamp challenge. Create your own post for social media about the bootcamp, and you might win all of these amazing prizes. The 3 prizes, 1 winner. So the winner will be announced on the 31st. I'm waiting for your post, dear friend. And as for the certificates, no worries. We will send it to you. Just make sure to send me an email or talk to me on LinkedIn, of course. And it's a wrap. 2021 Bootcamp has come to an end. Thank you, dear members, for being with us, laughing, asking, learning, testing, and most important, taking part in this wonderful journey. I hope this experience was everything you ever hoped for and more. It was my honor and privilege to be with you at the Bootcamp, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon on the next event, conference, and of course, on social media. I love you guys. Keep shining and happy testing, everyone. Bye-bye.